What is going on, YouTube universe? Welcome to the Hip and Shoulder, where today we are going to be diving into my predictions for the 2026 AFL season. And considering we have less than a month before that season begins, we got to fucking hurry up and get this locked in. I should probably start as well by saying Happy New Year, because it's the first video I have made on this channel since my mock draft at the end of last year, and it's kind of ironic because in that video I mentioned that the preseason and the off-season away from actually being able to see games played is an absolute killer for me. I just live within a sphere of boredom during that time and complain about how long it takes from the end of a season to the start of a season, but this one rolled around really fucking quick. When it comes to season predictions, they're really hit and miss with myself. Sometimes I come out and do absolutely amazing things, like saying when Brisbane were going to win the Premiership a couple of years ago, it would be on the back of a stellar performance from Lachie Neale and he would go on to win the Brownlow. And I am so upset I didn't lock that combination in, because I probably would have made a little bit of coin. But apart from that, maybe getting one or two things right, I'm pretty fucking terrible, so don't put much stock in what I'm doing today. This is all based on personal opinion, which turns attention to you guys at home. At the end of this video, once I've revealed everything that I'm going to be giving my opinion about and trying to predict, I would like to know your predictions as well. I will pin a comment down below with the kind of criteria we are looking for answers for, and then you can go and respond to that comment and let me know your thoughts. So let's dive on in. Always kicking off a season predictions video, I think it is prudent that you do the ladder prediction first. You run through where you think each team is going to situate themselves by the end of the home and away season, so then it's easier to do Grand Finalist predictions, Premier predictions, some Brownlow predictions, things of that nature. So I will be doing it in reverse order, 18 through to 1. And we are kicking it off who I think is going to be the Wooden Spooners for 2026, and I still think that is going to be West Coast. They have lost Oscar Allen, and to some that might not be that big of a loss, because really over the last few years Oscar Allen hasn't played much football. They have had some recruitment in the way of especially Tigers over the last couple of years. They had Jack Graham and Liam Baker head on over for the 2025 season. They picked up Tyler Young to boost their defense this year. They have Brandon Starcevich over there as well. I just think they are still in an area where a lot of the young kids are still finding their feet. I still think that even though Liam Baker has come over and injected a little bit of something, and you know, he's been named as a co-captain for 2026 and beyond, I still think they are lacking a genuine game breaker. Whether or not Harley Reid can step up to the plate this year and have a breakout season and kind of put all the, you know, bravado behind him, all that tough guy facade where he's always in people's faces, flipping the finger. If he can take that much energy and just put it all solely into playing football, he could be absolutely incredible. And I still think, even though he has recently re-signed, I don't know whether or not he is going to stay at West Coast outside of that extension. So is he going to start playing a better brand of football so he becomes more enticing to other teams to chase? I don't know, but I still think West Coast finish at the bottom, and I don't think that's a bad thing, because where they're at right now with all these young kids coming in, it's all about getting exposure into these young kids, especially some of the talent they've picked up in the last couple of drafts. That being said, some people might argue that this rebuild's been going on for too long and they need to start winning, and I'm not arguing with that at all. They need to start flipping the switch. Unfortunately, when it comes to the rebuilding teams around them, I still think they're behind that 8 ball. Moving on to 17th, and this might come as a shock to some. Some people might think I've absolutely lost my mind, but I have Essendon sliding in a rather big way. We know Nick Martin isn't going to be playing football at all for 2026, which is absolutely gut-wrenching, not just for Essendon supporters, but neutral supporters as well. I love watching Nick Martin get around and do his thing. He's an absolute weapon, but unfortunately, injury has him sidelined, and we know based on the 2025 season, when injuries start creeping in with Essendon, things start to go downhill a little bit. Sullivan Roby, only just drafted into Essendon at the end of last year, out with injury. We have question marks around some other, you know, players and fitness, whether Kyle Langford can get his body right. We know the big story, or one of the biggest stories during the trade period, was Zach Merrett desperately wanting to get to Hawthorn and that falling through. Since that happened, he's sacked his manager, I believe, and now there's talk around town going about that he's looking to extend at Essendon. I have some opinions about that. I don't think this is the video to discuss that in, but I just feel, even though some Essendon supporters might come out and say there's nothing to worry about, when you have your captain trying to jump ship as desperately as Zach Merrett and his management was trying to get him off, that doesn't bode well. I think there's going to be a bit of a disconnect. I don't know whether he's going to be playing his best football. Again, could be a very similar situation to other players who are trying to get out of their clubs. Does he have another big year because he wants to put forth a resume to other clubs? I don't know. Darcy Parish, has he purely gotten his body right? Is he going to be hampered with injury more? Ben Mackay, some other players that are suffering with injury, are they going to get back into the mix? I feel Sam Draper leaving that ruck position, even though it opens up opportunity for a young kid to come up and really have a crack, some inexperience in that midfield, in that role, even though they're going to have some prominent midfielders from Essendon's core in that mix. They still will have Zach Merrett. They'll have Jai Caldwell. They'll have Sam Durham. Is the ruck line going to be strong enough to complement that midfield group? Where is the leap from younger kids going to come from? Can they solely depend on Nate Caddy as a forward target? Does Peter Wright finally start injecting himself a little bit better? Can Kyle Langford stay on the park? There's a lot of question marks around Essendon this year, and I think that's what's going to see them slip. In 16th place, I have Richmond. So a lot of people probably were going to come at me going, oh, Essendon so low, where is he going to put Richmond? Is he going to put Richmond so high up? I actually had Richmond, I think, around 10th last year. That might have been a little bit over exuberant, if I'm being honest, but I still think Richmond are going to be in the bottom four, at least for the next 12 months. It's all about, for Richmond, really honing in and getting game time into these young kids. When it comes to the teams that are rebuilding, I think Richmond have gone about it the best. And when it comes to Tasmania coming into the competition, I really feel that is where Richmond flipped the switch. And now with the wildcard round being introduced, I can see Richmond finishing in 10th, in 9th, and being able to play off in that wildcard to get a finals appearance. I think they're a lot closer than what people are giving them credit for. I'm really keen out of the last draft to see Sam Cumming and the Grillmaster and some of these other players like Rechko, who we got traded from Geelong, really come in and assert themselves into a system that Adam Uze has not only started to build, but we've started to see a little bit more insight into. A lot of people questioned Adam Uze in his first season, and I told everyone to stick thick. Once his systems start playing into factor and the chemistry between the players starts to flourish, his systems will hold up. And we saw great glimpses with Richmond last year. I don't think they take the leap out of the bottom four this year, but I think in 2027, we could see that movement, you know, from bottom four into the next echelon of teams really step up. And in its own right, that just is a huge improvement for a young growing list. In 15th place, I have Melbourne. I think Petrarca and Oliver's exit is going to be a lot more insurmountable than what some people realise. I mean, they've got players on the team that can step into a midfield role now. Cozzy Pickett will play more midfield minutes. Trent Rivers will probably come off of half-back and play more midfield minutes. But can they play at the calibre that Petrarca and Oliver were playing at? I mean, I know Oliver wasn't his best at all by any means, especially after all that pre-season drama that they had with him, but he was still a solid player, still a key player, still found plenty of the ball. Christian Petrarca is a genuine line breaker and game winner, and they have lost that. I mean, they have heavily invested in the draft, and they have picked up a lot of young key talent that is going to see Melbourne, you know, rise again when the time comes. But I think for the time being, they're going to fall back just a little bit, and I think they would happily do so. They've got a new coach in Stephen King. They've had some off-field issues, not just with injury. They've lost Jack Viney for a big portion of the year. Jack Bowie for a large portion of the year. Stephen May, I think he might be relegated to the VFL all season. I don't think we will see him get a senior game, and that is absolutely huge. So we're going to see a lot of young kids get opportunity here. Whether they can, you know, withstand the pressure and stand tall is yet to be seen. But if you're a Melbourne supporter, I think you'd take a dip one season and then, you know, see that gradual climb over seasons to come. And as a Richmond supporter, I can understand that and take that on full-bodied. But I think the bottom four this year will be West Coast, Essendon, Richmond, and Melbourne. In 14th place, I have North Melbourne, getting out of the bottom four, starting to climb. Now, North Melbourne is a team that I think now has enough pieces around the ground that can start seeing a little bit more sustained success. They can start climbing. Can they finish as high as 10th to get a wildcard berth this year? I don't think so. But I definitely think with some rule changes, especially with the throw-ins between the back half and forward half now absolutely squashed, I think the midfield core of North are really going to love this, because Tristan Cherry prides himself on tackling, on getting his own clearance. So it's essentially they're going to have another midfielder around contests. And if he can't get from a contest into the defensive half or the forward half, and with the umpires now just going to ball up instead of asking for nominations, I think there's enough around in North Melbourne's core to get control of that ball. The question still remains whether or not their defense is going to be able to hold up, because while they have, you know, some excitement up forward, they've got a good core in the midfield and on the wings, their back half is something that I still think needs to be questioned. I mean, Colby McKercher off of half-back is going to be great. Toby Pink really solidified himself as a solid defender last year. But who do we talk about next? Right? I think that's where North Melbourne really need to lift their game. I mean, Alistair Clarkson apparently is now doing more one-on-one coaching like he used to do at Hawthorn, and the North players are really loving that. But can they build a solid enough defensive unit this year to push themselves further up the ladder? Remains to be seen. In 13th place, I have Carlton. Carlton fans are going to come at me, and I'll happily take it. No Charlie Curnow up forward now leaves Harry Mackay exposed to having to play a deeper role, whereas I personally prefer Harry Mackay as the player that can push up the ground and be that linking forward and kicking the ball in deep. Pittonet's now the number one ruck because TDK is gone. And Pittonet might be serviceable, but let's not forget, there was a period of time where Pittonet wasn't getting selected even though he was able to be. So if he was never good enough to be a backup option, is he good enough to be a sustainable number one ruck ahead of Liam Reedy, who got traded in this year? Is Liam Reedy going to be a forward option in order to fill that Charlie Curnow hole? I mean, I know they got Ollie Florent. I know they picked up Will Hayward. Very serviceable role players. Are they going to be good enough to fit into a system and instantly click? Nick Newman coming back into defense, I think, is huge. Does Mitch McGovern now have to play a forward role instead of defense? I think there is a lot of question marks to be had around Carlton. Their finish here in the ladder is going to prompt another prediction of mine later in this video. And I think there might be a fair few people that agree with that prediction when the time comes. I think collectively, people aren't really heralding the loss of Curnow and TDK as highly as they should be. I definitely think they're going to leave bigger holes in Carlton's lineup than what Carlton anticipate. And this is on the back of getting rid of a great utility player in Matt Kennedy only the year prior or the year before that. So whether or not maintaining players and recruitment is to be questioned is remain to be seen. But again, this now opens up opportunity for some youngsters to come in and maybe stamp some authority. But I think Carlton start to slide because they have lost arguably two of their best players out of 2025 coming into 2026. In 12th place, I have St Kilda. And again, St Kilda fans probably thinking I'm crazy because they've just gone and picked up Jack Silvani. They've got TDK. They've gone and picked up Liam Ryan from West Coast. They've got Sam Flanders. Anybody else they were happy to throw money at. I mean, Naz is now a $2 million player. I still think that's absolutely crazy because while I rate Nasiah Wanganeen-Malira as a good player, he hasn't shown that enough to warrant it. I don't know. I don't think players should be getting paid off of potential or promise. I feel it's something that they get paid for because they've already readily delivered that on a consistent level. Had a great year last year. Can he back it up this year to quantify the money he's getting paid? Remains to be seen. But I feel St Kilda here, even though they've gone and lashed out all this money, have they brought in the right players? Is the fit there to be had? Max King, injured again. So there goes another prominent forward. Is Rowan Marshall now going to have to be a more key forward type player in 2026 as opposed to a ruckman because TDK's been brought in? Can the defensive line of St Kilda hold up as well as they have? Jack Steele not in the middle. Is that going to take something a little bit out? I don't know where certain pieces are going to fit now because of all these players that have come in. They've brought in some great talent, but it's a question of talent versus team. You can have star players in a team, but star players in a team doesn't make a star team. Do you understand what I'm saying? And if they were to play finals and then go on to win the Premiership, would that start building an ideology that Premierships are not earned, they're paid for? Because St Kilda have essentially gone and paid for all these players to come in. You could argue that with anyone, because I mean, Richmond in 2017, we picked up Nankervis, Prestia, Caddy, but I don't think we paid as near as big enough money as what St Kilda have gone and splashed on all these players here. Don't think it instantly clicks for them. I don't think they play finals in 2026. If they do, they probably finish in that 9 to 10 bracket. And I would probably argue Carlton, St Kilda, and who I have in 11th place could compete for that 9 to 10 spot. But I have a couple of teams ahead of both Carlton and St Kilda on this list, which takes me to who I think is going to finish in 11th, and that is Adelaide. A team that absolutely dominated last year, bombed out in back-to-back finals, and I think there is arguments to be had as to why they will slip. There is always a team within that finals fixture the year prior that seems to fall out and not have as good a year. Adelaide's fixturing last year was a lot more cushy, a lot more affordable in many ways, because the year prior they were denied finals access through that goal that was not paid a goal. So the concessions they got was more home games, a bit of an easier draw. So of course they're going to be able to pull from that and play as incredibly as they played last year. They're already on the back foot because they're missing Isaac Rankin, at least for the first game, because of the suspension he copped for the homophobic slur at the end of 2025. They have lost some players through injury during the preseason that I think is going to hurt them. I think Mark Keane breaking his leg is going to be huge. Dan Curtin really felt he was going to have a breakout year this year, and he's gone and injured himself with a dislocated, was it a dislocated knee? I think it was. Sid Draper was promising to have a great start to this season, and he's gone and injured himself. Josh Rochelli's apparently running through the midfield, so they're trialing different things. Can a different looking Adelaide, in the way of missing some key components through injury, capitalize, I suppose, on earlier games? Because when it comes to that early jump, if teams get too far ahead early, you're going to struggle to make up numbers. And I think with Mark Keane, even though I rate him as a defender, I feel he is very in the mindset of flopping for free kicks. I think a lot of people might agree with that. If you watched a lot of Adelaide games last year, he was very much in the vein of throwing himself forward or back, or trying to, you know, overextend a push just to make sure the umpire sees it. He was still very solid in locking down and intercepting. Now leaving that role to Josh Worrell on his own, I think that's going to allow opposition forward lines to expose them early. And I don't know how long Mark Keane is going to be out for, and I don't think they have a alternative to really stand in to take his role. So it's going to be interesting. Going to be an interesting watch, but I think that's where that next 4 set of teams sit. The wild card this year is something that's going to be introduced to the final series. We've got 10th and 9th now being able to play in a game to make that final configuration to get a finals berth, to potentially win a premiership. Can a team from 9th or 10th this year win it all? Remains to be seen. But in 10th place, I have Collingwood. I don't think they will finish in the top 8 this year. I think some injury to some key components is going to hurt. I mean, Bobby Hill, there's no answer to where he is or where he's going to return. They lost Brody Myercheck to Melbourne. They lost Mason Cox to Fremantle. They're already running injuries with, Dan McStay struggling to stay on the park for long term. Tim Membry struggling, and I think they've even lost Tim Membry at the back end of last year, maybe even the year prior. So they're really pulling straws now when it comes to who's going to stand up tall in that forward half. Defensively, we know how they roll. In the midfield, we know how they roll. I think the ruck changes are really going to suit Darcy Cameron's play style. We know Nick Dacos is an absolute jet. Josh Dacos has apparently been teased as potentially getting more midfield minutes, and we saw when he was exposed into that midfield late in 2025, he was very enigmatic, is the word I'm going to use. Having those Dacos boys potentially together in the midfield could be an absolute game changer for Collingwood. Can they finish in the top 8? I definitely think there is room for them to do so, but I don't think they do it this year. In 9th place, just missing out, but still playing in that wildcard spot, is Port Adelaide. I actually, at one point in this configuration, had Port Adelaide as low as 14th. And then I went to look at their fixture, and they actually have a fixture that complements a potential wildcard run incredibly well. They've got Josh Carr at the helm this year, brand new coach, so we don't know what kind of configurations we're going to see, but they're going to have Horne-Francis back in the lineup, which I think is huge for them. Butters potentially could be looking at a move at the end of next year, so again, is he going to try to put a resume forward? Connor Rozee stamped himself as a premier halfback flanker last year. Can he continue that on? We know defensively, Port Adelaide have heavily traded to bolster their stocks. It is forward of the ball where they have struggled the most. And I think what is very questionable is they've taken Todd Marshall, who is one of their more prominent forward, line members, given the fact that they're lacking those key forwards, and they're using him as a defender who during the preseason has been seen taking a lot of kick-ins and things of that nature. So I don't know what Josh Carr is cooking, but there could be enough components in the works here that sees Port Adelaide start to rise up the ladder a little bit. We saw them absolutely bomb out last year, and I think a lot of that was potentially Ken Hinkley on his last legs. I don't know whether they were taking it all too seriously, that they were a rabble in some stages, a laughing stock in others. They were absolutely smashing things one week and then getting smashed the other week. I think this year they knuckle down. A new system might help them find a little bit of continuity, and they start climbing the ladder again. This is where the fun begins. My top 8. Anybody from 8th to 1st here, I feel, is comfortably making some moves this year from the off-season to this point in time that could see them win the Premiership in 2026. In 8th place, I have the Western Bulldogs. I feel they were a little stiff to miss finals last year. Had they had, access to Marcus Bontempelli earlier in the year, some other injured players, they lost Sam Darcy for a period of time. I think those types of players and the caliber of talent that they bring could have flipped the switch. I mean, they lost a couple of games by under a couple of kicks that would have absolutely seen them finish in the top 8, but unfortunately, they just didn't have the personnel to get it done. Can Adam Treloar keep himself fit enough to stay on the park? Can Tom Liberatore back up a big year like he had last year? Can Cody Waitman coming into the team potentially just add a little bit of dynamic into that forward line? Can Aaron Norton and Sam Darcy become the best 1-2 punch in the way of key forwards in the competition this year? It's a big watch for these guys. I think they are coming into this season with a lot of doubt looming over them, but I think they're a real dark horse to win the competition this season. In 7th place, I have Fremantle. A lot of people writing this team off, but I still argue on paper they are one of the most well-rounded teams in the competition, from defensive line, the midfield, the forward line. They have star power absolutely everywhere. And I think, again, these new ruck rules are going to benefit probably this team the most out of any team in the competition. And I tell you why. This preseason, Luke Jackson has been training and doing match simulations as an inside midfielder. A lot of people might think that's stupid, but here's the caveat to that. He plays inside mid. That means while Sean Darcy is lumbering around the field, if he can't make it to a contest where the ball's thrown up, Luke Jackson then becomes an active ruckman against a midfielder in that sense. And Luke Jackson, 9 times out of 10, is going to win that contest. I think they are going about these rule changes the best out of any team in the comp over this preseason. They've got weapons everywhere, as I said. Across that half-back line, Jordan Clark, I think there's a little bit of injury doubt out of a recent training session, but he is absolutely equipped to take the competition by storm this year. The interceptability of Luke Ryan, if they can keep Alex Pearce fit as well, he's a great lockdown kind of role player. Then in the midfield, Caleb Sarong, Andrew Brayshaw, they've got, some other young talent coming through, like a Neil Erasmus who can maybe get a little bit more exposure into that role. They can get other players like obviously Luke Jackson, who's playing a more midfield dominant role. Shai Bolton has apparently been getting a lot of midfield minutes over the preseason, and we know that he has ability to not sustainably do it, because I still argue he doesn't have that big of a tank, but he can break lines, he can make things happen. Forward of the ball, we have Josh Tracy, who I think is in for a big year. Can we see the likes of Patrick Voss, the unicorn, step up and go to a new level? It's going to be an interesting watch with Fremantle. While a lot of people are writing them off, I think they're still right in the mix for a top 8 finish. In 6th place, I have Hawthorn, and I've seen a lot of people having these guys in top 4, even as big as going number 1. I still think they'll be within this top 8 configuration. It'll be great to see Mitch Lewis get some continuity to his game. It'll be good to see whether, Jack Ginnivan, Nick Watson, these young small forwards, can they really step up and take their game to the next level? They've lost some inside run through that midfield, but that now opens opportunity for a Cam McKenzie. Maybe a Connor McDonald gets a little bit more midfield minutes. Will Day's injured again, but when they get him back, he is arguably their best player when he's on the field. James Sicily carried injuries for most of 2025. Now that he's gotten his body right, can Hawthorn's defense truly solidify themselves? Again, another team to watch. I don't think they will be top 4 this year, but I definitely think coming off of the back of making finals last year, seeing Jai Newcomb really stand tall during that period of time, it's going to be an interesting watch with these guys, because I definitely think they're within that time period of this team being built, that the window for that premiership is slowly starting to open itself up just a little bit more. In 5th place, I have GWS, and they could very well finish in the top 4. It was just all about not being able to get personnel out on the field last year due to injury. They had too many players at any given time absolutely missing. I don't know whether Josh Kelly even comes back into the lineup this year. Could his days be numbered playing with GWS? I really don't know. But they've picked up Clayton Oliver in the off-season, and I think his addition to this team is a little bit underrated as well, because while he hasn't been that game changer that he used to be, he's an accumulator. He loves feeding the ball to his teammates, and being able to feed the ball to the likes of Finn O'Callaghan, Tom Green. It's going to be a very interesting watch to see how this configuration works. They have one of the best defenses in the competition. Sam Taylor, Lockie Whitfield, Lockie Ash, all the young kids they're building around that. Forward half of the ball, Aaron Cadman, I'm tipping to have a breakout year this year. Jesse Hogan, Toby Green, will he still move up forward and get midfield minutes to really change the tides as well? Primed this year. If they can stay fit, I definitely think they can give the Premiership a red hot shake. Now my top 4, and there's only 4 teams left, so it's just a matter of where they land. And in 4th place, I have Sydney. Missed finals completely in 2025. They're going to be the big climbers for me in 2026. And the biggest reason as to why is because last year, forward half of the ball, they were almost non-existent. Joel Amadi had to do so much on his own, and often than not, he struggled to find continuity in his game. We very rarely saw Logan McDonald. Tom Papley was in and out due to injury. They go and pick up Charlie Curnow, who can definitely be a game-winning key forward for them. This allows now a Joel Amadi or a Logan McDonald to now come through as a secondary or a third-tier key forward with less defensive pressure on them to really turn the tides. A Hayden McLean could really step up their game this year due to this fact as well. Curnow looks fit. He looks happy. I feel last year you could see there was something going on behind the scenes with Curnow that was making him play the way he was playing. And I think with a fresh location, he is going to come out and absolutely rip it to shreds. Not to mention, they definitely missed Errol Goulden early last year as well, and he is absolutely tearing it up. So to see Goulden, to see Warner, to see Heaney, all of these players fit and firing, they're going to come out and have a really big year this year, and I think a top 4 finish is not beyond them at all. In third place, I have the Gold Coast Suns, and I think they finally have the final pieces they need to have a premiership push. Matt Rowell wins the Brownlow last year. I still have opinions on that, but he had a great year last year. Noah Anderson had a great year last year. Rioli off of half-back. Noble off of half-back. They had Bailey Humphrey step up in places that really stood tall. They have gone now in the off-season and recruited Christian Petrarca, who I feel Damien Hardwick is going to utilise like he did Dustin Martin. We are going to see Petrarca have bursts in the midfield when needed, but he, more often than not, I feel is going to be used as a one-on-one forward to try to be that game winner deep, that deep offensive threat. Try to drag somebody deep into the square, go one-on-one, break those lines, kick those goals. And when we talk about goal kicking, they've gone and picked up Jamara Ugle-Hagan. Now, people like Kane Corns feel he might have to go into the VFL and earn his spot into this team. I don't think they go and trade for someone like Jamara Ugle-Hagan and have him dwindle in the VFL. I think they bring him straight in. Does he play centre-half forward and leave Ben King deep? Does Ben King move up the ground a little bit more and allow Jamara Ugle-Hagan to be that deeper threat? The fact is, they now have some key components they were missing. They now have a forward midfield threat in Christian Petrarca, and while they've lost Sam Flanders, I think Petrarca is ahead of Flanders in the way of talent, so they've definitely bolstered themselves there. They finally have a legitimate key forward combination with Ben King, and I was talking before about whether or not Sam Darcy and Aaron Norton can become that 1-2 punch the competition is going to revere the most. Ben King, Jamara Ugle-Hagan have potential to be that 1-2 threat as well, and that makes Gold Coast moving forward so incredibly threatening. I mean, even in this trade period and draft period they've just gone down, they've gone and drafted some young talent that I think can come straight into this team and add. I mean, Zeke Hewland playing off of the wing is going to be an absolute game changer. Leo Lombard fought through some injuries last year, but getting a decent crack this year. Can he be a game changer? They're going to be a very interesting watch, and I think a top 4 finish for the Gold Coast is all but a lock. Second place, I have Geelong, and I flipped between Geelong and Brisbane for this particular spot. Geelong are just going to do Geelong things. We know they win football. Whenever they go out and play, they're going to be a very hard team to beat. They're going to win more often than not at GMHBA. They love playing at the MCG. If they travel, they have potential to win away from home, and they haven't really altered their list all too much outside of last year's grand final performance. Even they got absolutely smacked last year in the grand final, but nothing sustainably has changed enough in that lineup to suggest a downfall. They're going to be a top 4 finish. It's just a matter of where they finish. And I think number 2 is a good spot for them to land, which obviously means Brisbane is my number 1 seed, finishing first overall for 2026. And similar can be said about their lineup. Have they lost enough out of this team to slip? They've lost Brandon Starcevic down to West Coast, but Starcevic missed, big portions of the year through to concussion. So is it really a big enough loss for them, especially when they have Kitty Coleman to come back into that defensive line? They lost Oscar McInerney, who never set the world on fire, but played a really solid ruck role. But they've gone and picked up Sam Draper, who, even though he's out injured currently, is more athletic than Oscar McInerney. He can break lines a little bit better. He's got a lot more run in him. He's got a bigger tank, so he can definitely be a game changer for them. Brisbane, in their forward line, had to depend a lot last year on youth having to stand tall. But they've gone and brought in Oscar Allen, who doesn't only bring in a little bit of experience, but brings in some leadership to that forward line as well, which now means a player like Logan Morris can have a bigger season forward of the ball. The big thing for me with Brisbane is whether or not Lachie Neale can fight through the shit that he's gone through with the cheating scandal and everything he's dealing with his family. But from all reports, he's absolutely tearing it up on the preseason track. So I think Brisbane still primed to finish again within those top 1 to 2 teams, and very much so have huge potential to go for a three-peat, locking up another modern dynasty. I mean, we haven't seen this from Brisbane since the early 2000s, but we're potentially going to see it this year, which takes me, now that we have done the ladder, to my grand final and premiership predictions. I think this year the grand final is going to be played between Brisbane and GWS, and it all just comes down to GWS keeping all their players on the park and staying injury free. I think this matchup could be an absolute banger. Can I see any other teams playing in the grand final? Yes, Geelong definitely can. Gold Coast definitely can, and I hate to say that, but yes, they can. Sydney, GWS, Hawthorn, Fremantle, Bulldogs, as I said, top 8 configuration. Everybody can make an argument for it. I definitely think Brisbane have the strongest case to be there because, again, I don't think they have compromised their team enough. Geelong are one of those teams as well that could make it there. But out of this pairing, Brisbane versus GWS, I'm locking in Brisbane for a three-peat. Could they then go on for a four-peat? Who knows? This Brisbane team they're building, and they continue to bring in external talent from these academies into their team, they're only going to get better. It's fucking scary. Brownlow Medallist. I've armed and ahed with this. There are 3 names I want to talk about, and we could probably put those into who I want to win, who will probably win, and who will be a smoky to win. Who I want to win, I would love to see Marcus Bontempelli do it. If the Bulldogs can finish top 8, I think they do so off of the back of their skipper, making sure they get to that point in time. He has been robbed of probably 2 to 3 Brownlows at this period, and I think with him getting into the latter years of his life, he will end up winning one. Whether or not people want to have that conspiracy going around that the AFL are aware of who the votes are going to, whether or not the voting needs to be changed, that's something we can talk about in another video, and I've got plans to talk about that. But I definitely feel, you know, even looking at last year's votes, Marcus Bontempelli missed the first handful of games and still stormed home well enough to finish. Didn't he finish in the top 5 by the end of the night? Huge. Had he had played those early games, could have he challenged for the Brownlow last year? Who knows? But I would love to see him win it. Who will probably win it? Hard to go past Nick Dacos, especially when he finishes second and the AFL go out of their way to make the room applaud him for missing out. It almost seems to me that he will be, I'm not going to say gifted. Gifted is not the word, but they're going to be more Nick Dacos centric when it comes to keeping eyes on him during games. And that's not at all to argue he's not deserving of the award, because he is an absolute elite talent. Generational is definitely a word you can throw around with him, and if he was to win it, he would absolutely deserve it. But I definitely feel the story that has been told of he finished second, and, you know, the AFL have gone out their way to say, oh, you know, commiserations, but let's applaud him, he's had a great year. You know, he lost to Patrick Cripps the year prior, but still got more votes to break the record and even come second. So it's building. A Nick Dacos Brownlow is coming, and he will probably win it next year. But my smoky is going to be Will Ashcroft from Brisbane. The only thing I see stopping Will Ashcroft from winning a Brownlow is too many players stealing votes from him, and that's probably the same boat Marcus Bontempelli falls into. At the Bulldogs, you've got Treloar. He can play well enough to get votes. Ed Richards last year polled a lot of votes. Liberatore polls a lot of votes, so there's players taking votes away from Bontempelli. Similar at Brisbane, you'll have Lachie Neale, you'll have Hugh McCluggage, you'll have Josh Dunkley. These types of players all pulling votes as well. But if Will Ashcroft can piece together a home and away season as comprehensive as he played last year's finals campaign, there is absolutely no conversation that can be had that has him ruled out for winning the Brownlow. And I think a lot of people would love to create a conversation point out of that. If Will Ashcroft was to go and win a Brownlow before Nick Dacos went and won one. Wouldn't that be a great conversation? Moving on from the Brownlow medalist is my Coleman medalist prediction. We've already spoken about him quite highly in this video. I'm going with Charlie Curnow to kick 72 goals in the 2026 season and win the Coleman medal. We've seen him do it before. I think with delivery from the likes of Heaney, Warner, and Errol Goulden, he is going to be absolutely swallowing the pill inside that forward 50, and we're going to see many games from him this year where he kicks 3, 4, 5 goals. It's going to be a huge turnaround. I cannot understate how big of a move him going to Sydney is going to be. It's going to be huge, not just for Sydney, but for Curno's career. First time All-Australian. I think I hit the nail on the head last year. I think I said... Did I say Matt Rowell last year? I think I picked someone and ended up being right, which is actually far from me picking something right, which is great. But this year, I'm going with Nick Vlastuin from Richmond. I've definitely think that the 2 times he's been really up there for this role, he got beaten by Darcy Byrne-Jones one year, which I think is one of the biggest rorts in All-Australian history. Last year, Richmond might have finished second last, but I felt Nick Vlastuin's presence in the back half was one of the best defensive performances of the year, and all the commentary teams were talking about him. All of the AFL journalists were talking about him, but he was still snubbed on the night, and it was probably hard to argue with some of the players that were picked. I personally would have selected Nick Vlastuin ahead of Josh Battle, but Josh Battle's stats do stack up well enough for him to be selected. But I'm hoping this year Nick Vlastuin gets awarded with his first blazer after a couple of missed opportunities where he should have definitely been in the team. Final prediction for the year is my biggest headline of 2026. And it's going to tie into what I said about Carlton earlier, slipping and losing the players they did. Michael Voss sacked by Carlton. I think the time has truly come. They can't rest on their laurels anymore. If they have a terrible start to the year, I could see them axing Michael Voss by the mid-season buys. I definitely do not think if they miss finals this year, Michael Voss will be at the helm at the end of 2026. I just realized I skipped over something. So before we continue, let's run it back just a little bit. NAB Rising Star. How did I skip over this? I have no idea. I think Jaga Smith from Carlton is definitely going to win this award. He would have been a red-hot favourite to win it last year had he had played, but all the pre-season footage of Carlton shows him right now potentially being their best player, which is absolutely insane. He has had 12 months to build his body, and I think he is going to hit the ground running hard. He will feature round 1. He will play every game this year, barring injury, and I think he's already got one hand on the award. My Smokey is going to be Taj Houghton from Richmond. A lot of people seem to forget before he did his ACL in his draft year, he was potentially a top 1 pick. He was definitely locked into the top 5. He did his ACL, everybody wrote him off. But Richmond contacted him in that moment and said, we don't care that you've done your ACL. We are committing to you and telling you we will be selecting you in the draft. And they did that. And I have so much admiration for Richmond for doing so. I love what Taj Houghton brings to the table, and I really feel he could be a smoky chance for the Rising Star, but I think Jaga Smith is going to take it down. Now I've got everything on track. I don't know how I missed that, but now that I've got all of those out of the way, I would like to know in the comment section down below, as I said, your predictions, your ladder prediction, who you think the Grand Finalists are going to be, as well as the Premier. I would love to know who you think the Brownlow Medallist is going to be, the Rising Star winner, the Coleman Medalist, an All-Australian selection, and what you think is going to be one of the biggest headlines for 2026. Again, I will comment that all down below and pin it so it's easier for you to access. But that is it for today's video. Do hope you guys enjoyed. Again, they're all my personal opinion. They could be completely hit or miss, which is why I now turn the tables to you to discuss those as well. I have so much content planned moving forward. We are going to talk about the State of Origin once it's finished and give my thoughts on how that played out. I've still got to do my Super Coach reveal for the year, and we're going to commit to weekly videos for that. Tipping will kick off soon. Keep your eyes peeled. And I've got some fun ideas for some different types of content as well, including a video that I'm hoping to drop next week. If you did enjoy today's video, you're keen for 2026 action, do hit that like button down below. If you're new around here and you want to get on board the community we are building, hit that subscribe button as well. But that's it from me, guys. I'm out of here, and as always, I will catch you guys next time.